Hi everyone, I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Mike Scalise, and I've decided to start a new watch channel. I know there's a lot out there, so I figured I'd throw my hat in the ring here and just use this as a space to talk about watches, to perhaps discover new watches and meet new like-minded individuals and everything. I do have a couple of I have an Instagram page if you want to check out any watch posts that I do. It's at curated horology, and then I also have if you're on the Watch Crunch watch forums, my username is Mike199, and big time watch collector. I've happy to share a little bit of my journey. I started first getting into watches at about 20 years old, currently 35, so a while back. And of all things, it was at the time I was working for a muscle car, classic car dealership, and because I'm into cars as well as watches. And as I find most collectors that I know or that I meet are also into some other form of mechanical interest, such as automobiles. But I was working for this dealership, and the owner of the dealership, my boss, was really into watches, Invicta watches. So he would come into work every day with a new watch on. Allegedly, he had somewhere in the vicinity of 300 to 350 watches, and I remember he used to preach about how amazing these Invicta watches were. To me, I don't think I could pull off, a 45 plus millimeter. But this was a bigger guy. He was 6'5", had much bigger wrists, and they didn't look too terrible on him. But he would always tell me, go on QVC at the time. This was, I guess, the internet was still, the internet wasn't what it was today. We'll put it that way. So he would, tell me to go on QVC and look up, look at the Invicta watches, and you could get great deals on them. And I never ended up doing that. But for my birthday that year, he had given me a watch. I don't think he bought it. I think he just gave me a watch from his collection. But he gave me a Jacques Le Mans, I believe it was a chronograph. It was a quartz, but it was the thought that counted. It was a neat watch. It was, I believe, the having Le Mans in the name, which anyone who's into cars knows that's a very famous 24-hour endurance race in Le Mans, France, every summer in June. So he gave me the watch, and I wore it probably every day for a good year or so. Around that same time, my dad started realizing that I was getting into watches. My dad isn't really much of a watch fanatic, although he does have, a couple Seikos and everything that he would wear on a daily basis. And so he had purchased a Stour watch for me, which is one of these, as I understand, it's a Chinese company that, they make watches to appear like much more, high-end horological pieces. And he got me that watch. I still have it. I don't have the Jacques Le Mans anymore that my boss had given me, but I do have the first Stour watch that my dad gave me. And so, now as a young 20-year-old kid with two watches and a growing interest, I really liked the style of the Stour. It's meant to look like a vintage piece. And actually, I believe it's the one I have in particular is meant to look like a Daniel Roth watch. I'll show it some other time on the channel. I don't have it in front of me at this moment. But so that's how I got into the hobby. And then within a year, I'd gone down the rabbit hole of purchasing a number of different Starrow watches that I just thought looked cool. I had a their 1933 based, Graves watch, which was a triple calendar that I thought was incredible looking. Just a simple rose gold plated, watch that had some, obviously stamped guillocheting and everything. So I was into them more for the aesthetic. But I had suffered from what I think perhaps a lot of new collectors, what they experience is purchasing a large quantity of watches in a short period of time. And then, once that honeymoon period dies and you're left with a bunch of watches that aren't really worth a whole lot of money, or at least not even close to what you paid for them, the love kind of dies down. And that's what happened. After about 2 years, I had pretty much kind of grown out of the hobby a little bit. I wasn't really wearing a watch every day. It wasn't until about 2017 that the second generation of the Apple Watch, the iWatch, had come out, and I purchased a second generation, and that kind of got something back on my wrist on a daily basis. And within a couple of years, I just grew tired of, all of the notifications and the constant, vibrating on the wrist. And I know you could silence notifications. Everybody always tells me that when I share how I grew tired of wearing an Apple Watch. But I noticed when I was having conversations with people that were wearing an Apple Watch, they're always, looking down at in the middle of a conversation. And I soon realized I was one of those people. And so about 2018, I ditched the Apple Watch. My wife and I got married in 2018, and she purchased a quartz Movado watch for me as a wedding gift. So, towards the end of 2018, I started wearing that Movado every day. And then, one thing led to another. I still had the couple Starrow watches that I purchased, around 2010, 2011. And now I had a nice Movado watch. That was my first, I guess, real nice watch, you can say. And then from there, 2020, unfortunately, my great uncle passed, my mom's uncle. And he had a series of watches, a Seiko and a Pulsar, and a couple different neat watches that he left to me. And then, my grandfather, who was very, very frugal with his money, and for him, he wore Timexes his entire life. I remember as a kid, and to him, splurging on a $50 Fossil, was a big deal. And the last couple of years of his life, my grandparents moved from Florida back here up to New Jersey. And my grandmother had purchased a Fossil watch for him. And I just remember, during the couple of years he was up here, he always had that Fossil on his wrist. And when he passed at the end of 2020, my mom asked, is there anything that you want, from him? We're clearing his things out, and I asked for his Fossil watch. So, not a tremendously valuable watch monetarily, but for me, it's priceless. And so, by 2021 or so, I had, again, these Starrow watches that I had purchased. I had the Starrow watch that my dad first bought me, and I had, through inheritance, had started amassing a little bit of a watch collection. And so here we are in 2025. I would say it was still a couple of years. My wife and I bought our house in 2021. I'm, as I mentioned, I'm a car guy, so went down the car rabbit hole, buying and getting into various vehicles. And then it wasn't until about early 2023 that I really, dove headfirst back into the watch hobby. So, that's kind of my story. I'll get into, collecting philosophy in a new video, and share some of my watches, and talk watches and discuss things. And that's really my intent and what I'd like to accomplish with this channel, and see where it goes from there. But I figured for a first video here to sort of introduce my channel, I would just explain who I am, and sort of what I'm doing here, how I got started. Maybe one day in a future video, I'd like to maybe dive a little bit deeper into my collection philosophy, and how what I did early on with just buying a bunch of cheap watches wasn't fulfilling to me, and I kind of grew out of the hobby. And I think the path that I'm on now with my collecting journey is much more exciting to me and fulfilling. So, thanks for watching. Anyone who has watched this video, and I'm excited to post a few more things. So, welcome, and I feel weird asking you to subscribe or like or anything, but maybe for starters, in the comments, tell me a little bit about your collecting journey. How long have you been collecting? What type of watches are you into? Does any of my story thus far resonate with you, and so forth? I'd love to learn more, and share more of what I like about the hobby, and learn from others as well. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in a future video.